boy had always loved music, ever since he could remember. The sound of a piano filled him with a sense of peace he could not explain. At home, there was only a small keyboard his parents had bought when he was very young, and though it was not much, he treated it as a treasure. Every day after school he would rush home, finish his homework as quickly as possible, and then sit at the keyboard for hours. Sometimes he played simple tunes he had learned from books. Other times he closed his eyes and let his fingers wander, creating melodies from his imagination. His love for music was deep, but so was his shyness. In front of people he rarely spoke, and his voice was soft when he did. Even at school, he would avoid attention and preferred sitting quietly, reading or sketching in his notebook. Music, however, was different. When he played, he felt strong, even if only for a short while. Every note was a small victory over the world outside, a space where he could be himself without fear of judgment. One afternoon, his teacher mentioned a music school in the city that was holding auditions for young musicians. The school had a reputation for producing some of the finest talent in the country. The boy's heart raced at the thought. He wanted to go, but the idea also terrified him. The hall where the auditions would take place was grand, filled with shining pianos and polished floors. Just imagining the eyes of strangers watching him made his stomach twist into knots. At home, he told his parents about the opportunity. They had always encouraged him, though they knew little about the world of music beyond their small living room. They smiled warmly and said, "If you want to go, you should try. You never know what might happen." Their words gave him hope, but the fear remained. He practiced harder than ever, trying to imagine himself in the big hall, standing tall and confident. Yet, every time he thought about the director who would judge him, doubt crept back. On the day of the audition, he walked with his parents through the busy streets to the music school. The building itself was intimidating, with large glass doors and marble steps. Inside, the air smelled faintly of polish and music sheets. Other children were warming up, their fingers moving quickly over shiny pianos. The boy felt small among them. They looked so confident, so sure of themselves, and he wondered if he truly belonged there. Finally, it was his turn. The director, a tall man with a serious face, watched him carefully. He had a reputation for being blunt and critical, and the boy felt the weight of that gaze as he approached the piano. He took a deep breath and lifted his hands to the keys. The director leaned back in his chair and laughed softly. "He'll never perform," he said, loud enough for others to hear. The words struck the boy like a cold wind. He froze, unsure if he should step back or continue. His parents whispered encouragement, but his heart pounded too fast to hear anything else. For a moment, he wanted to run away, to leave the hall and hide from the embarrassment. But something inside him stirred, a small, stubborn spark of determination. He remembered all the hours he had spent at home, practicing in secret, feeling the music in his soul. The director's laughter was sharp, but it could not take away what he had built inside himself. He swallowed his fear and focused on the piano in front of him. He placed his fingers gently on the keys. The first notes were soft, hesitant, as if the piano itself sensed his nervousness. But as he continued, his fingers found their rhythm, and the melody began to flow. It was not perfect, there were small mistakes, but the music was alive. Each note carried his emotion, his passion, and his courage. He was no longer thinking about the director or the other children. He was only thinking about the sound, about the story he wanted to tell with each chord. The director's laughter faded into silence. The boy noticed that people in the room were listening closely, some with eyebrows raised, others with mouths slightly open in surprise. The music was not just notes on a page anymore. It was an expression of everything he felt inside. He played faster, more confidently, letting his heart guide his fingers. The room seemed to shrink around him until only he and the piano existed. Time passed, but he did not notice. He was living in the music, and the music was living in him. When the last note lingered in the air, he realized everyone was quiet. The director's face had changed. The mocking smile was gone, replaced by a thoughtful expression. The boy's chest was tight, and he felt like he had been holding his breath for a long time. Then the director nodded slowly, a small but meaningful gesture. It was not a word of praise, but it was recognition. The boy felt a warmth spread through him, a quiet victory that no laughter could erase. After the audition, he stepped out of the hall into the sunlight. The streets looked brighter somehow, as if the city itself acknowledged his courage. He walked beside his parents, who held his hands tightly, proud but not needing to say it. The boy realized that this moment, regardless of the outcome, had changed him. He had faced fear, he had faced doubt, and he had still played. That was something no one could take away. As they returned home, he thought about the piano and the director, about the laughter that had tried to stop him. He understood that sometimes people judge before they see, sometimes they doubt before they know. But he also understood that belief in oneself mattered more than anyone else's opinion. He knew the road ahead would be long and filled with challenges, but for the first time, he felt ready to walk it. He had touched the piano, and in doing so, he had touched a part of himself that was stronger than fear, stronger than doubt, and ready to grow. That night, he sat at his own small keyboard at home, fingers moving across the familiar keys. The music he played was not for anyone else. It was for him. And yet, he felt the world listening, felt the director's earlier laughter turning into something softer, almost like a memory of a challenge overcome. In the quiet of his room, he smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning of a journey that would take him far beyond what he could imagine. After the audition, the boy returned home with a mixture of emotions swirling inside him. Pride and excitement were tangled with nervousness and doubt. He knew the director had seen something in him, even if it had been unspoken, and that thought both thrilled and frightened him. He spent the night replaying the notes in his mind, imagining how he could make them even more expressive, how he could make the piano sing exactly the way he felt it should. Music had become more than a hobby. It was a language he could use to speak what words could not. The next morning he woke early, his mind still on the piano. He remembered every detail of the audition hall, the polished floors, the grand piano, and the director's gaze. He thought about the laughter, the words that had tried to make him feel small. But now he realized that laughter had become a challenge. It had pushed him to want to improve, to practice harder, to understand music in a deeper way. He felt a small spark of determination. He would not let doubt win. For the following days, he dedicated himself to his practice more than ever before. He worked on the pieces he had played for the audition, replaying each note until it felt natural. Sometimes he played slowly, focusing on each movement of his fingers, listening carefully to every sound. Other times, he let the music flow freely, allowing his emotions to shape the rhythm and melody. He recorded himself on a small device his parents had given him, listening to the playback over and over, noticing the areas that needed improvement. Each time he corrected a mistake, he felt a small sense of victory, as if he were proving to himself that he could overcome any obstacle. His parents watched him silently, proud of his dedication. They had never fully understood the depth of his love for music, but they could see how it transformed him. When he played, he seemed lighter, happier, and even more focused on life. They encouraged him gently, bringing him snacks while he practiced, reminding him to rest, and listening when he wanted to talk about a particular passage that troubled him. Their quiet support became an invisible backbone for his growing confidence. One afternoon, he received a letter from the music school. His hands shook as he opened it. The words inside confirmed what he had hoped. He had been invited to attend a series of advanced classes, where he could learn from some of the best musicians in the country. Excitement rushed through him, but so did fear. He knew the challenges ahead would be greater than anything he had faced before. He would be among children who had trained for years, who seemed confident and skilled. Would he be able to keep up? Would he still be the boy the director had laughed at? Or could he rise above that first impression? Despite the fear, he decided to accept the opportunity. He understood that growth required stepping into the unknown, even if it was uncomfortable. He began to prepare for the advanced classes with renewed energy. Each day he created a schedule, dividing his practice into sections. Scales, technical exercises, and pieces he wanted to master. He focused on precision and technique, but he never let go of the joy that music gave him. Even when tired, he reminded himself that the notes were not just exercises. They were a way to express what he felt deep inside. He also began to observe other musicians more closely. At school, he would watch classmates who played instruments, noting how their hands moved and how they seemed to breathe with the music. He asked questions, learning not just from teachers but from peers, discovering that music was a shared language that connected people in subtle ways. He realized that every musician had their struggles, their moments of doubt, and that even those who seemed confident had once faced the same fears he now felt. In the evenings, he would sometimes imagine performing on a big stage, imagining the audience listening intently as he played. He pictured himself overcoming nervousness, feeling the music flow through him freely. These mental exercises helped him build confidence, teaching him to visualize success even when real challenges seemed daunting. Slowly, fear began to give way to determination, and doubt began to be replaced by a quiet belief in his own abilities. As the days passed, he faced moments of frustration. There were times when a piece refused to come together, when his fingers stumbled over a tricky passage, and he felt like giving up. But each time, he reminded himself of the director's laughter and how it had sparked a fire within him. He knew that mistakes were part of learning, that perseverance was as important as talent. With each failure, he learned patience, discipline, and the importance of persistence. He started to see his practice not as a task but as a journey, one where each step forward, no matter how small, mattered. The boy also discovered the power of listening deeply. He began to study recordings of famous pianists, not to imitate them but to understand how they expressed emotion through music. He noticed subtle nuances in timing, touch, and phrasing. He realized that music was not only about playing the right notes but about making the listener feel something. This insight changed his approach. He stopped worrying about perfection and started focusing on expression. His music became more alive, more personal, and more moving. One day, while practicing at home, he felt a sudden surge of clarity. He realized that the piano had become an extension of himself, a place where his thoughts, fears, and dreams could meet and take form. He played with more confidence than ever before, each note reflecting a part of his journey. The room seemed to fill with light, not just from the afternoon sun but from a sense of accomplishment he had never felt before. He understood that his love for music, combined with discipline and courage, was giving him something no one could take away. He also began to interact more with his teachers, asking for feedback and guidance. They noticed his dedication and started giving him more challenging pieces that required not only skill but also interpretation and emotional depth. He struggled at first, but he welcomed the challenge. Each new piece was like a puzzle, and solving it brought immense satisfaction. The boy realized that growth in music, like in life, required stepping outside comfort zones and embracing challenges with an open heart. Despite the intense practice schedule, he found moments of joy and playfulness. He would sometimes compose little tunes, inventing melodies that expressed happiness, curiosity, or even mischief. These moments reminded him why he loved music in the first place. It was not only about impressing others or meeting expectations. It was about expressing himself freely, exploring feelings he could not put into words. By the time the next series of classes began at the music school, the boy felt ready in a way he had never felt before. The nervousness had not disappeared, but it was now accompanied by confidence and a quiet excitement. He walked into the school, carrying his sheet music and a sense of purpose. Other children were there, some familiar from the audition, others new, all with their instruments and their dreams. The boy reminded himself that everyone had their own journey, and comparison was not the point. The point was growth, expression, and the joy of music. The first lesson of the new series was challenging. The teacher introduced advanced techniques and complex pieces, and the boy felt the pressure immediately. But instead of shrinking back, he approached each exercise with curiosity and determination. He asked questions when unsure, listened carefully to corrections, and tried again until he improved. Slowly, he began to notice progress. Each day, His fingers moved more confidently, his interpretations became more expressive, and his understanding of music deepened. The boy realized that talent was only part of the equation. Discipline, patience, and passion were equally important. Outside of the classes, he continued his own practice, refining pieces, exploring new compositions, and learning to balance technical skill with emotional expression. He also started to share his music with family and friends, discovering the joy of connecting with others through sound. Their smiles and encouragement reinforced his confidence, showing him that music had the power to bring people together, to communicate beyond words. Through it all, the boy never forgot the director's laughter. Instead of letting it haunt him, he transformed it into motivation. Each note he played became a quiet answer to the doubt he had faced. He learned that criticism, even when harsh, could become a tool for growth if approached with the right mindset. He realized that the opinions of others could not define him. What mattered was his own commitment, passion, and willingness to learn. By the end of this period of preparation, the boy had changed. He was still the same shy, thoughtful child, but now he carried himself with a quiet confidence. Music was no longer just a secret passion. It was a force that gave him strength, courage, and purpose. He had discovered that dedication, practice, and belief in oneself could turn doubt into opportunity and fear into achievement. He felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that each step forward was part of a journey that would continue to shape him in ways he could only imagine. The boy understood that the road ahead was long and would require constant effort, but he no longer feared it. He had learned to trust in his own abilities, to embrace mistakes as lessons, and to let music be his guide. As he walked through the quiet streets after another day of practice, he felt a sense of calm determination. The journey was just beginning, and he was ready to follow it wherever it might lead, with the piano always by his side, a faithful companion in a life filled with sound, emotion, and endless possibility. The day of the performance arrived, and the boy woke early, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness that made his stomach flutter. He had practiced for months, refining each piece, exploring every nuance, and imagining himself playing in front of an audience. But as the moment approached, the fear returned, whispering doubts in his mind. Would he be able to play perfectly? Would the audience notice his mistakes? Would the director, the one who had laughed at him, see him as he truly was? His parents walked with him to the music school, their hands steadying his as if transmitting courage through their touch. They offered words of encouragement, reminding him that he had prepared as much as anyone could, and that what mattered most was the music itself, not the opinion of others. The boy nodded, trying to absorb their calm confidence. But inside, a storm of nerves continued to swirl. As he entered the grand hall, the boy felt a sudden awe. The room was larger than he remembered from the audition, with high ceilings, polished floors, and rows of chairs stretching back as far as he could see. A large piano sat on the stage, gleaming under the bright lights. Other children were already seated, some adjusting their instruments, others quietly reviewing sheet music. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation and quiet tension. He took a deep breath and walked onto the stage, his small hands clutching his music sheets. The audience looked up as he approached the piano, a mix of families, teachers, and students who had come to witness the performances. He felt their eyes on him, felt the weight of expectation pressing down. For a moment, he froze, remembering the director's laugh from months ago, the words that had tried to make him feel small. But then he remembered the months of practice, the countless hours he had spent at home, the small victories that had built his confidence. He placed his hands on the keys and let the music take over. The first notes were soft and hesitant, as if he were testing the air. But soon, the melody grew stronger, each note carrying a piece of his heart. He closed his eyes, feeling the vibrations under his fingers, letting the piano speak for him. The hall seemed to disappear, leaving only him and the music. Every mistake that had plagued him in practice vanished as he focused on expression and emotion. He played not to impress, not to prove anyone wrong, but to share the music that lived inside him. The audience leaned forward, drawn into the delicate and intricate performance. They could sense the boy's passion, the honesty in his music, and the courage it took to perform despite fear. Each crescendo, each gentle touch of the keys, told a story, revealing layers of feeling that words could never capture. The director, sitting at the front, watched intently, his expression unreadable at first. But as the boy continued, a shift began to show. The laughter, the doubt was gone. In its place was something more profound, respect. Midway through the piece, the boy encountered a challenging passage, one that had troubled him countless times during practice. His fingers hesitated for a brief moment, and his heart skipped a beat. But he remembered everything he had learned about perseverance and trust. He did not panic. He continued with steady hands, adjusting as needed, letting his instincts guide him. The audience, unaware of the tiny struggle, only heard the seamless flow of music. It was a lesson he had learned well. Fear could exist without controlling the outcome if one remained focused and calm. As the performance continued, the boy allowed himself to feel fully, pouring every emotion into the music. Joy, hope, longing, and determination all mingled in the notes he played. He thought of the months of preparation, of the quiet evenings spent at his small keyboard, of the encouragement from his parents, and the lessons learned from mistakes. Each memory became a note, each feeling a melody. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was a mirror of his journey, reflecting the boy he had become. By the time he reached the final chord, the hall was silent, holding its breath as the sound lingered in the air. The last note faded, leaving a moment of quiet that felt suspended in time. Then, slowly, the room erupted in applause. The boy opened his eyes, feeling a rush of relief and exhilaration. The director rose from his seat, walking toward the stage. His expression was serious, yet there was a glimmer of pride in his eyes. He nodded at the boy, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. The boy had not only performed. He had impressed, moved, and conquered the doubts that had followed him for so long. The boy stepped back from the piano, his hands trembling slightly from the intensity of the performance. He felt a mixture of exhaustion and triumph, a sense of fulfillment that was difficult to describe. The audience continued to clap, and some people were even standing, their admiration clear. He realized that the journey was not only about the music itself but about the courage to face fear and the determination to keep going despite challenges. After the performance, the director approached the boy. He spoke quietly but with sincerity, praising the depth, emotion, and precision of the playing. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of recognition and respect. The boy felt a warm glow in his chest, a sense of validation that went beyond any applause. It was the understanding that he had faced a significant challenge and had succeeded on his own terms. The boy's parents embraced him, tears of pride in their eyes. They had watched him grow through the months of preparation, seen his dedication and determination, and now witnessed the culmination of his hard work. Their joy and pride added to the boy's sense of achievement, reinforcing the lesson that perseverance and passion could overcome fear and doubt. In the days that followed, the performance became a turning point in the boy's life. He was no longer the timid, hesitant child who doubted his abilities. He had learned that courage and preparation could transform fear into opportunity. Music had become a bridge between his inner world and the outside, a way to express what words could not. The director's laughter, once a symbol of doubt, now seemed distant, almost irrelevant. It had sparked a journey that had led to growth, understanding, and confidence. The boy continued to practice, but now with a renewed sense of purpose and joy. Each session was not just about mastering technique, but about exploring emotion, storytelling, and the connection between the performer and the listener. He began to understand that music was a lifelong journey, one that required dedication, patience, and an open heart. The performance had shown him that fear was not an obstacle to success, but a natural part of growth that could be transformed with focus and determination. As he walked through the city streets after another day of practice, he noticed the world differently. There was a brightness, a sense of possibility that had not been there before. He realized that his journey with the piano was just beginning and that each performance, Each note was a step forward in a lifelong adventure. The boy felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that he had the strength, skill, and courage to continue growing and expressing himself through music. After the performance, the boy felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. His fingers were sore from playing, and his heart still pounded from the adrenaline of being on stage, but he felt a sense of completeness he had never experienced before. The audience had clapped, some had even stood, and the hall still echoed with the resonance of his music. For the first time, he truly understood the power of his talent and the effect it could have on others. The director, who had once laughed at him, approached with a careful, deliberate step. His expression was serious, but there was a hint of admiration in his eyes. He said nothing at first, just studied the boy as if measuring how much of the courage, skill, and emotion had come through in the performance. Then he nodded slowly, a quiet acknowledgement that spoke more than words could. The boy felt a rush of relief and pride. The laughter that had once caused him doubt was now a distant memory, replaced by the satisfaction of having proven himself through persistence and effort. Other students and musicians who had performed alongside him began to approach, offering congratulations and expressing genuine admiration. The boy, who had once been so shy, now felt a confidence that allowed him to smile and accept their praise without feeling awkward. Some asked him about his technique, others about how he had prepared, and he answered honestly, sharing the months of dedication, practice, and quiet determination that had led to this moment. He realized that his journey was not just personal. It could inspire others as well. In the days that followed, the boy began to notice subtle changes in the way people treated him. Teachers and peers alike seemed to regard him with a new respect. The director, previously strict and critical, now offered guidance and mentorship, recognizing that the boy's potential was worth nurturing. He was invited to participate in special lessons and workshops, learning more advanced techniques and being challenged in ways that stretched his abilities. Each new challenge was met with determination, not fear, as he had learned to trust in his skills and preparation. The boy's parents were proud beyond words. They had watched their child grow from a quiet, hesitant student into a young musician with courage and skill. They noticed changes in his demeanor, the way he held himself with quiet confidence and purpose. He still retained his humility, but there was a new spark in his eyes, a sense of self-assurance that could not be shaken. At home, they celebrated in small ways, simply enjoying the music he played and the joy it brought to their lives. The boy also began to reflect more deeply on the journey that had brought him here. He remembered the hours of practice at his small keyboard, the moments of doubt and fear, and the laughter of the director that had initially wounded his confidence. Now he saw that every challenge, every difficult moment had been a step in his growth. The director's doubt had been an unintentional catalyst, pushing him to work harder, to refine his technique, and to develop his emotional expression. He realized that obstacles were not meant to stop him, but to strengthen him. As he continued with his studies, he started to perform more often, first for small gatherings and then for larger audiences. Each performance reinforced what he had learned, that music was not just about skill, but about connection. The notes were a bridge between him and the listeners, a way to communicate feelings and stories without words. He found joy in seeing others moved by his playing, in watching faces light up with emotion as the music unfolded. The boy understood that his talent carried responsibility, the responsibility to share, to inspire, and to continue growing. During this time, he also formed friendships with other young musicians. They shared experiences, offered support, and learned from each other. He realized that talent could flourish more fully in a community where encouragement and collaboration existed. Together, they explored new techniques, tried difficult pieces, and even composed small works collaboratively. The boy discovered that while individual effort was important, shared creativity and mutual support could open new doors and enrich his musical journey. The recognition he received extended beyond the music school. Invitations to perform at local events and small competitions began to arrive. Each opportunity brought new experiences and lessons. He learned to manage nerves, to adjust to different audiences, and to maintain focus under pressure. Every performance was a chance to grow, to refine his technique, and to deepen his connection with the piano and the audience. The boy discovered that growth was continuous, and that success was not a final destination but a series of steps, each building on the last. Despite the increasing attention, he remained grounded. He continued his private practice, dedicating hours to honing his skills, experimenting with new melodies, and understanding the emotional depth of the pieces he played. He realized that talent alone was not enough. Discipline, perseverance, and a willingness to learn were equally essential. The boy had learned to embrace challenges rather than fear them, seeing each obstacle as an opportunity to grow stronger and more expressive. As time passed, the boy's story began to inspire others. Younger students, facing their own fears and doubts, looked up to him as an example of what dedication and courage could achieve. Teachers used his journey as a lesson in resilience, demonstrating that talent combined with hard work and determination could overcome even the harshest criticism. The boy, once so shy and unsure, now understood the value of his experiences, not just for himself, but for those who could benefit from his example. He also began to experiment with his own compositions, translating the emotions he felt into original music. Each piece was a reflection of his journey, a combination of the lessons learned, the challenges overcome, and the joy discovered in performance. His compositions were personal yet relatable, conveying feelings that resonated with listeners in unexpected ways. He found satisfaction in creating music that was entirely his own, a testament to the growth he had achieved and the courage he had cultivated. The director continued to play a significant role in his development. What had begun as skepticism had transformed into mentorship. The director provided guidance, helping the boy refine his technique and deepen his understanding of music theory and interpretation. Their relationship evolved from one of doubt and judgment to one of respect and collaboration. The boy learned not only to play but also to think critically about music, to analyze pieces, and to express his own interpretation with confidence. Through it all, the boy never forgot the moment when he had first touched the piano in the audition hall. That moment, filled with fear, uncertainty, and the laughter of the director, had been a turning point. It had ignited a determination that carried him through months of practice, challenges, and growth. He understood that success was rarely immediate. It was built on persistence, courage, and the willingness to face doubt head-on. The recognition he received was gratifying, but it was not the ultimate goal. What mattered most was the journey itself. The daily practice, the exploration of emotion through music, and the small victories that accumulated over time. Each day brought new opportunities to learn, to express, and to connect with others through the universal language of music. The boy understood that his journey had only just begun, and he welcomed each step with eagerness and determination. As he continued to perform and study, he also became more reflective. He thought about the countless children who might doubt themselves, who might face criticism and fear, and he realized that his story could serve as encouragement. He wanted to show that even in the face of doubt, with persistence and passion, one could achieve remarkable growth and recognition. Music had transformed him, not only as a performer but as a person, teaching him resilience, empathy, and the value of effort. The boy's life began to revolve around music in ways he had never imagined. His days were filled with practice, study, and performances, but each moment carried meaning. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was a companion, a guide, and a source of joy. He felt a profound connection to the music, one that extended beyond the notes themselves, touching the hearts of those who listened and inspiring those who watched. Recognition had come, but more importantly, he had discovered the depth of his own capabilities and the beauty of sharing his gift with the world. Through this period of recognition and growth, the boy matured not only as a musician but as an individual. He learned to handle praise and attention with humility, to approach challenges with courage, and to continue striving for improvement. Each experience reinforced the lessons learned from the first moment he touched the piano in that audition hall. The laughter that had once stung now felt like a distant memory, replaced by the understanding that belief in oneself, combined with dedication and perseverance, could overcome even the harshest doubt. He felt ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that the journey of music and personal growth was endless, filled with opportunities to learn, create, and inspire. After months of performances, lessons, and personal growth, the boy's journey with music had become deeply rooted in his life. Each day, he approached the piano not with fear or hesitation, but with anticipation and joy. He had come to understand that music was not only a skill to be perfected, but a language to express feelings, dreams, and experiences that words could not fully capture. His fingers, once tentative, now moved with confidence and fluidity, conveying emotion with every note. The boy continued to perform in front of audiences of all sizes. Some were intimate gatherings of friends and family, where he felt at ease and free to explore new ideas. Others were larger, more formal recitals, where he had to maintain focus under the watchful eyes of listeners who expected perfection. In each performance, he found a new level of connection, both with the audience and with himself. The music became a bridge, a way to communicate without words, to share pieces of his heart and soul. Each time he played, he felt a sense of fulfillment that was difficult to describe, a quiet understanding that he was doing what he was meant to do. As he matured, the boy also began to compose his own music. He experimented with melodies, harmonies, and rhythms, creating pieces that reflected his personal experiences, emotions, and growth. Sometimes the compositions were joyful and playful, other times deep and contemplative. Through this process, he discovered that creation and interpretation were inseparable. To truly understand music, one had to both perform and create. His compositions became a reflection of his journey, a way to mark the moments of struggle, triumph, and discovery he had experienced. His recognition continued to grow. Teachers, directors, and fellow musicians acknowledged not only his technical skill but also the emotional depth of his playing. The director who had once laughed at him became a mentor, guiding him in interpretation, style, and technique. Their relationship had transformed from one of doubt to one of respect and collaboration. The boy learned to appreciate constructive criticism, using it to refine his skills and deepen his understanding of music. He realized that guidance and mentorship were invaluable, helping him to navigate challenges and reach higher levels of expression. Despite the increasing attention and opportunities, the boy remained grounded. He remembered the days when he had felt small and uncertain, the hours of practice in his quiet room, and the first moment he had touched the piano in that audition hall. Those memories reminded him that success was not an endpoint, but a journey. Humility, dedication, and self-awareness became as important as talent and skill. He understood that music was not a competition, but a personal exploration, a chance to connect, to grow, and to inspire. He also began to understand the broader impact of his story. Young students who had once felt discouraged or shy looked to him as an example. Teachers shared his journey to demonstrate that perseverance, courage, and passion could overcome doubt and fear. He realized that his experiences were not just about personal achievement, but also about inspiring others to believe in themselves. The boy's story became a quiet message that challenges and criticism were not obstacles to avoid, but opportunities to grow stronger, more confident, and more expressive. As he continued to study, practice, and perform, the boy developed a deeper relationship with the piano. It was no longer merely an instrument. It was a companion, a confidant, and a source of endless inspiration. He explored new genres, techniques, and forms, always seeking to expand his understanding and expression. He played not for accolades or recognition alone, but because the music itself called to him. The joy of creation and performance became a constant source of energy and purpose. The boy also learned to manage the pressures that came with recognition and expectations. He experienced moments of doubt and anxiety, as anyone would, but he now had strategies to cope. Visualization, careful preparation, and a focus on the music rather than external judgment allowed him to maintain calm and confidence. Each challenge he overcame reinforced his belief in his abilities and deepened his love for music. He understood that the journey would always include obstacles, but that these were not meant to discourage, only to strengthen his resolve. Over time, the boy began performing in larger venues and for more prominent audiences. Each performance was an opportunity to connect, to express, and to refine his craft. He learned to adapt to different settings, to gauge the energy of the audience, and to communicate through music in a way that resonated universally. The thrill of performing, the challenge of interpretation, and the joy of connection became inseparable parts of his experience. Music was no longer a private refuge. It was a shared experience that touched hearts and inspired minds. Despite his growing skill and recognition, the boy remained humble. He continued to practice daily, to explore new compositions, and to study the works of master musicians. He understood that mastery was a lifelong pursuit, and that each new piece or performance was a chance to learn, to improve, and to discover. He approached each day with curiosity and dedication, finding satisfaction not only in achievements but also in the process itself. The journey, he realized, was as important as the destination. The boy's relationship with the director continued to evolve. The once skeptical mentor now celebrated the boy's growth and encouraged him to take risks, to explore new styles, and to develop his own voice. Their interactions were filled with guidance, discussion, and mutual respect. The boy learned to value feedback, to think critically about his performance, and to approach music with both passion and discipline. The director's mentorship became a cornerstone of his growth, providing wisdom and support as he navigated the challenges of a musician's path. Through it all, the boy never forgot his beginnings. He remembered the small keyboard at home, the early struggles, and the fear that had once gripped him. These memories grounded him, reminding him of the importance of humility, effort, and perseverance. They also reminded him of the power of belief in oneself, in the journey, and in the transformative power of music. Every performance, every note, was a continuation of that journey, a celebration of the courage and dedication that had brought him this far. As he grew older, the boy began to share his experiences more openly. He spoke to younger students, encouraging them to face their fears and pursue their passions. He shared his methods of practice, his approach to overcoming doubt, and the importance of embracing challenges. His story became a source of inspiration, demonstrating that talent alone was not enough, but that dedication, courage, and passion could transform a dream into reality. He understood that by helping others, he was also enriching his own journey and deepening his connection to music. The boy's life had become intertwined with the piano in ways he had never imagined. Each day brought new opportunities for learning, performance, and creation. He explored the nuances of technique, the depths of emotional expression, and the joy of connecting with audiences. Music was no longer just a pursuit. It was a way of life, shaping his thoughts, emotions, and experiences. He had discovered not only his own abilities but also the profound impact that dedication, courage, and self-belief could have on the world around him. In the quiet moments, he would sometimes reflect on the journey that had brought him here. He thought of the laughter in the audition hall, the doubts, the long hours of practice, and the small victories along the way. Each memory was a reminder of how far he had come and how much he had grown. He understood that the journey of a musician was ongoing, filled with challenges, discoveries, and joys, and he embraced it with an open heart and mind. The boy had learned that music was more than performance. It was connection, expression, and growth. Each note, each melody, was an opportunity to share a piece of himself and to touch the hearts of others. He continued to explore, to practice, and to perform, always striving for excellence, always seeking to express the depths of his emotions through the piano. His journey had begun with fear and doubt, but it had transformed into a life of courage, passion, and purpose. As he looked to the future, the boy felt ready for whatever lay ahead. He knew that challenges would continue to arise, that there would be moments of doubt and difficulty, but he also knew that he had the tools, the determination, and the love for music to face them. He had grown not only as a musician but as a person, learning resilience, humility, and the joy of pursuing a passion with all his heart. The piano, once a simple instrument at home, had become a companion, teacher, and voice through which he could express the fullness of his being. The boy's story, from the first hesitant touch of the piano to the confident performances and compositions, was a testament to the power of perseverance, belief, and passion. It demonstrated that even in the face of doubt, ridicule, or fear, one could rise, grow, and inspire. Music had transformed him, shaping not only his skills but his character, and guiding him on a journey that would continue for the rest of his life. Each day, each note, each performance was a celebration of that journey, a reminder that courage, dedication, and love for what one does can lead to extraordinary growth and fulfillment.